Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the Board of County Commissioners. Well, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oops, wrong way. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry about that. Well, shut up.
Okay, first thing we have on our agenda today is we have a discussion regarding the letter of support for the Mancos Conservation District. And with us on Zoom, I see Miss Rank. How are you doing this afternoon, ma'am?
I'm doing great. I'm in a 3-day watershed workshop in Mancos. I appreciate you letting me join via Zoom today.
You bet. Well, you have the floor. We all have seen the letter in our packets, but I'll let you go ahead and give us your presentation.
Sure. So the Mancos Conservation District was the fiscal agent for a co-swap grant last year that was awarded for the Mancos Conservation District, the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe at Adams Ranch, Wildfire Adapted Partnership, and DWRF as well. We started to do some outreach and started to work at implementing some of the project scope of work from that grant. Most of the Mancos Conservation District's role within that was to work with larger parcels for remediation and wildfire prevention activities. As we started to talk with landowners around that, we really recognized the need for capacity or additional capacity, specifically a forester position with the Mancos Conservation District that would really help to fill a critical gap currently in available technical assistance to private landowners. And working closely with WAP, they're doing an amazing job on that defensible space role within the county. The Conservation District also works in partnership with the NRCS, or Natural Resource Conservation Services, for EQIP dollars and conservation planning services for more of the larger agricultural designated parcels. And we're seeing this gap between 5 and 35 acres where landowners, they'd like that technical assistance, they'd like a forestry conservation plan, really looking at what are healthy forests, which trees to cut, and being able to provide a plan for that property, but also wanting to do some of that work themselves. It goes beyond the defensible space kind of realm and exceeds that capacity, but they don't necessarily also want to apply and go through kind of the sometimes the rigorous red tape, I guess, of receiving kind of federal cost share dollars. They want to do a lot of the work themselves or be able to do a lot of work themselves. And so as we've been outreaching to these landowners, received a lot of this feedback. I just talked to another landowner at our annual meeting yesterday that is working with their neighbors on several thousand acres and trying to really look at mitigating some of our prioritized areas. We really, really need that expertise and that capacity to be able to provide our landowners with that technical assistance in a forester position. We did submit a concept paper to the AIM program. That concept paper was approved to move forward with the full grant application that is due next week. And we've been working with DWRF on developing that application. And so we would just really, really appreciate the County Commissioner's letter of support to be able to attach with that application. And I'd be happy to answer any other logistical questions or questions about the application.
Okay.
I don't have anything, Gerald.
Oh, I don't have anything right now.
I guess I do, Gretchen. I have a couple quick questions. So this person that you're asking to hire through this grant, is this just a 1 year, 3 year cycle? What does it actually go to?
So this particular grant is a 1 year cycle. So it would be giving us that ability to kind of start the capacity piece for 1 year. Part of the grant application, though, is us being able to talk about how are we going to sustain this position. And so we do have some additional grant possibilities that are out there to extend the position beyond 1 year. We also have a long history of partnerships and being able to establish partnerships with multiple entities in order to fund some of our employee positions. But the idea is if we can add this capacity specifically for this gap, with a lot of the opportunities and a lot of the prioritization on forestry and wildfire actions, we're confident that we can sustain this beyond this one-year grant.
Okay. And then, I mean, it specifically highlights the 5 to 35 acres. So this is more of specifically a planning grant to help the people within those categories, and then to help them through the process of a grant if they need it themselves, correct?
So it's capacity. This position would help with forestry planning. So it is a forestry position with someone that has a degree and background in forestry. It's to be able to provide landowners with that technical assistance. Some of our landowners that we've spoken with don't necessarily want grant assistance or necessarily cost share assistance. They just need the technical side of things to know, what it is that they need to do to establish a healthy forest or a wildfire ready forest. Then the other piece of this forestry position is also the idea of being able to coordinate our forestry industry products. So the other kind of gap within, really focusing on that 5 to 35 range in acreage is that we're not going to have a lumber mill, come down from somewhere else to mitigate 35 acres. And so as we look at some of these larger neighborhoods and some of these neighbors that want to get together and they may have a product to sell that may help with those mitigation, offset some of those mitigation costs. This position would really help to coordinate that and make sure that neighbors and parcels that are adjoining, that kind of have some of these same goals, coordinate the ability to utilize those forest products either for sale or for beneficial use here in our local community lumber, all of kind of those things that those products can be used for.
Okay. And then lastly, how big is the Mancos Conservation District? How many square miles is that?
I would have to look back at our annual report. I believe we've always had it in square acreage and so square miles, but I would need to look at our long range plan and our mapping. I don't have that number right on the top of my head.
Okay,
sure.
that's fine, and I can look at it too. I was just curious to see what it was going to serve.
So we actually are also, we're partnering with collaboratives that are countywide. Our co-swap grant did incorporate a targeted area from Jackson Reservoir all the way to the town of Dolores. We work very closely with the High Desert Conservation District, that is our partner district in Montezuma County. And so while the Mancos Conservation District is looking to submit this application and bring this person on as an employee if we're funded, we are not restricting the work just to our particular district,
Right.
knowing that wildfire knows no boundaries, right?
Yeah. So it would be countywide then. It would help countywide. Okay. That's all
Yes.
that I had, gentlemen. Any other questions at all?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Well, we'll have this on our agenda tomorrow for a decision. Obviously, we can't make decisions in a workshop, but we will tomorrow.
Okay, wonderful. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. I know Mr. Anderson has my contact information, and I just really appreciate your time today and consideration.
All right. Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You bet. Bye-bye. Okay, next on our agenda, we have Marylin Wagner with CTSI, and she's going to give us analysis on our 5-year loss for workman's comp. So with that, Marylin, you have the screen, and take it away.
Well, thank you. And let me make sure, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, I have some new equipment, and that's always a challenge to make sure it's working properly. So thank you for allowing me to have this time. And as you are well aware, being long members of CTSI, County Technical Services, each year we just give an update of the insurance pool and the loss trends. And myself being in the loss control department, who has the responsibility for doing training and assisting the county in risk management. We deliver this report to you each year, and and you do have this in front of you, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. Okay, great. And I will just go through the information again for the county's workers' compensation, and it is in the context of belonging to this insurance pool. So I've got a little bit of an update on the pools themselves, which these are some numbers you don't have, but I pulled these from the winter conference information that you received at the end of 2022. And this again, obviously, is just informational for the county to kind of see where you're at this point in time, and the standpoint of giving some suggestions on what to do about any trends that are happening. And by the way, just so that you are aware, or just a reminder, this is what we call our 5-year loss analysis, because we look back at 5 years, but we also provide the county with a year end for the current year that you're in. So we provided one for the end of 22, and then we provide one also midway through the current year, which will be out just after July ends, to give you a snapshot of where you're at different points along the way. So in just looking at the workers' comp pool, and of course, you are a member in that pool only, and the workers' comp pool at the end of last year ended with an equity of 26 million. 26 million, pretty healthy amount, what has to be kept back for reserves or for insurance requirements. But also, as you're aware, being a member of this pool, any monies that don't have to be kept back are distributed to the members. And the membership overall for the workers' comp pool last year received 3 million. Now, for Montezuma County, your base for your contribution for workers' comp started at a little over 356,000, but that's modified. You do have a current loss factor that was calculated at the end of last year of a little over 1. If you think of 1.0 as break even, you are currently at a 1.07. That means it does add to the loss factor, and that's just based on loss experience. But if you look at this graph, and the loss factor is based on the oldest 3 out of these 5 years, you do see that the 2018 and 19 have a higher, it kind of goes off of that graph. There were just a higher amount of dollars of claims. But the good news is that it was trending down in 20 and 21. Those older years will drop away. So there should be a reduction in that loss factor next year. You do see a slight uptick again in 2022, and that would just be something to make sure that you are aware of in the controls that you have in place, trying to mitigate any of the loss trending that would be increasing again. So, but of course, we'll talk about that very thing. So I would encourage you to just flip to the second page of that first colored graph, which is, it says county by division at the top, and division or department is just a way to express that. Now you will see your number of frequency of claims and severity of claims along the top. That is, again, 5 years. And it is trending upwards somewhat. But again, that takes into account those older years on that graph that did have a little bit of an increase. And that's why it again affects that loss ratio or that loss factor, but we do see it trending down for the middle years coming up. So, and again, our largest departments would be typical to be represented on this graph, as you do see in front of you. And I will flip to the next colored graph page, because now it gets into a little bit more of what are we exactly talking about here. The first one was the department, but now these graphs are what type of injuries or accidents are actually occurring. So we see some of the larger trends represented in the bar graphs that have a name. If it was anything less than 10, because that's the fifth bar graph there in blue, so it's onesies and twosies or something less, they just didn't create their own bar graph. So frequency is at the top, how many claims occurred, severity at the bottom, what was the dollars? The dollars is what affects your loss factor. So just to pull out a couple of trends here, we see slips and falls and this body mechanics category showing up in both lines of this graph. This body mechanics being anything kind of musculoskeletal, lifting and pushing and pulling, are sometimes separate categories, but we can overall think of this as somehow an injury with the body. So only slips and falls and body mechanics are 30% of your severity or of your frequency, and 38% of the severity or the dollars down below. So and that's very typical of our trends with the pools overall. Anything that's physical. We do have jobs in the counties that are very physical. Obviously our road and bridge, using mechanical equipment. Our sheriff's office, very physical at times in the duties that they have to perform. So, and we will see as we flip onto the next page, if you will, some of that breakdown. These next pages, these next 4 pages are the bar graphs, but now spelled out for you by each department, by sub-departments from within, and then showing you the frequency and the severity or dollars of those claims. If there was more than one type, then it has a 2 or more, but then it has the average out on the far right column. And so this is a history over 5 years, and you can see within each department, especially where some of the larger, maybe more of a shock type claim occurred, maybe a one-time large injury that occurred. And we do see body mechanics and things like running, jumping, showing up as some of those higher injury categories. We see other things like being caught in between equipment. We do see, and you will notice this on our last page when we get to it, but on the second page under law enforcement, that inmate related injuries are definitely ticking up as well, not only for you as a county, but for all counties belonging to the workers' comp pool. It's maybe just a sign of our times, of just how that duty is so dangerous at times to be able to handle an inmate or an arrestee situation. We again see lower down on that second page some of the larger claims that occurred under road and bridge, and again, departments that have a larger exposure because of what they do. So as I go through all of your claims and essentially look at what are the major loss causers, it is that of something that's physical. It's a slip and fall situation, or it's pushing, pulling, or moving materials of some way or another. Very often is a broad category, at least, of how employees are being injured. So some of the things that we would suggest from a control standpoint is back to some of the basics of making sure people understand their jobs and how to protect themselves very well. If an injury occurs, if a claim occurs, we strongly encourage a kind of an internal system called accident investigation. This is simply to drill down to what was the actual cause of that loss. It may not have just been the most immediate, it may be something that's further back, like is it training, or is it a lack of using the right method, or could we even think about substituting that entire job for another method that still gets the work done but isn't as much of an exposure for that person getting hurt? We are talking to our counties this year about trying to consider forming safety committees, internal safety committees with your various departments, representing each department. They can come together, they can talk about some of the claims, trends that are happening, they can do self-inspections on each other's departments to look for the hazards. This is something that you can do on a more frequent basis. CTSI is glad to come in to do audits to help out, or to do training and classes, and to assist and sit in on safety committee meetings. We want to encourage that to continue, however, when we are not present in the county. So, I mean, these are just basics that we try to encourage each county to think about. Safety committees, accident investigation, looking for those causation factors, and then what can we do to mitigate? Is it changing a process again? Is it maybe improving safety equipment? Maybe it's better footwear. Maybe it's thinking about how we handle and walk on icy surfaces in the winter. We've talked about ice cleats before as well. And then awareness, which is brought about by training. And CTSI, of course, offers training in-person classes. We've got recorded classes online. We've got our biz library system as well. And we've got our technical updates that we send out twice a week on a safety topic, or maybe a business topic as well for the county. But all of that to create awareness. And as well, CTSI is just trying to help out with training needs that you do have to keep you in compliance, and not only for compliance to any rule or state law or regulation, but obviously back down to the basics, trying to keep people from getting hurt on the job. So and to save you cost in the long run, because if we can bring that loss factor down, obviously that helps with your contribution. As you again know, CTSI keeps you within a range for loss factor amounts, but it's your own internal controls on how those claims develop into dollars, that if you can keep it down, especially below that 1.0 factor, you will not be charged and as a surcharge or an extra for the loss trends when they are going high. And again, it looks like in the future, as the next 2 or 3 years goes on, that will be coming down, and we want to make sure it continues to come down. I'll direct you to the very last page as well. And this is all of your fellow members, as well as your own county, in the workers' comp pool. So it's by the type of accident that has been happening for the last 5-year trend in our pool. And I would just point out the 3 of the top 4 on that list, and they are categorized by the dollars of claims. So that severity middle claim or dollar column is how these are categorized. But we've got slips and falls, body mechanics, and lifting. 3 of the top 4 of ways that employees are getting injured. if I do the calculation on those numbers, it is 37% of the frequency of claim is just those three categories, and the dollars spent on 3 years for all the members is over 16 million. Obviously, that's a large amount of money, and the more that we can keep that number down, well, obviously it's less people getting hurt, but it also is better for the insurance cost and for any cost that CTSI as the pool has to maintain. As the lower they are, the better it is for the whole membership, obviously. So, and I will point out that third on the list is inmate related. So you can see that your own county is following many of the same trends that the rest of our membership is as well. So I'm thinking about things like good fleet safety policies again. Yes, that can also fall on your liability side, but whenever we do have an auto accident, it's likely someone gets hurt and injured. We've seen some of that in our claims history here. Just again, making sure we're training well on any kind of body mechanics type of job duties, and making sure that supervisors are looking closely at how those accidents occurred, doing a good loss analysis, and looking for ways that internally they might be able to prevent that type of injury from happening in the future. So we want to obviously assist you from our loss control seat in that, and when we do send out the year-end and the mid-year loss analysis, we are definitely offering that assistance as well. And the next time that I am in the county in person, we can also talk about any future training that you may be interested in. I am looking to be with you around the third week of May in person, and we'll get with my contact for the safety department then, and we'll see what needs we may be able to talk about throughout the rest of this year. Are there any questions on this informational update?
I really don't have any. I mean, this is pretty typical, as kind of what it was last year, slip, trip, and fall.
It is.
Pretty high, and for us, specifically our road and bridge and sheriff's department, that hasn't changed. I mean, they're still in that line of work, and that line of work just creates a lot of the hazards, so I don't...
Right. I know it is sometimes a frustrating process, but again, I might encourage safety committees and some other processes that if you're not necessarily having that in place now, that sometimes some of the answers can come from within as well. Maybe it's a matter of footwear, maybe it's a matter of situational awareness, otherwise, maybe in some cases it might be mechanical. Sometimes that's rare, but it is, sometimes it seems like it's a necessary part of the job, but we sometimes I think just creating awareness around it does help people at least think about it when they can. Some of our moments in some of the job duties that are required are more of an emergency situation. Our sheriff's office, good example, and sometimes there's less control, absolutely, in those circumstances. But just know that we are here to try to assist and give you this information as it might help in your internal efforts, and I will absolutely be in touch when I'm in the county the next time and see what some of the needs might be that we can help with throughout this year and beyond.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll speak to you in person on the 3rd of May.
I'm sorry, the third week of May, I'm going to be in town. Yeah, and I'm planning to meet with Road and Bridge. I don't have a meeting set up with you as commissioners necessarily, but if there is anything you'd like to speak about, I will certainly try to make myself available when I'm there. I will likely be meeting with my safety contact while I'm in town and see what needs they may have, and we can discuss anything else that might be happening for the future.
Okay, thank you, Marilyn. Do you guys have anything?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
I appreciate it. Thank you, commissioners.
You bet.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
I don't think anything's changed from the last several years, has it? Kent?
No,
I mean,
it's just,
it just,
it follows a pattern.
Part of
We
it.
get one big claim, and then away we go.
yeah. Okay, ladies, you are next. We have Miss Black here and Miss Bugg here. And they want to talk to us about a change in schedule.
Okay, yeah, so you probably, am I on
Turn it. Is it on?
this one?
Yeah.
I'll just use this one,
Mike's
That
for
one's on.
everybody.
yeah.
Oh, I know it.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so we're here to do a proposal for a pilot program in our building. So that would encompass the clerk's office, the assessor's office, and the treasurer's office. And our proposal is that we extend the working hours from 7:45 to 5:30, but we work 4 days a week and get our 35 hours. That's what that building works in that way. And we would want to do the pilot program from May 1st through the end of the year, and then maybe reevaluate, see where we are, see how it worked, how it didn't work. I think La Plata County has just kind of done this same thing and got a positive. There's 18 counties in Colorado that are already on the 4-day. And we just see a lot of benefits, not only to the public, who is always trying to run in our building at the last minute when we're closing, but also to the employees, many of which have children that are off on Fridays. So that's kind of how it came about.
So we would be
Okay.
closed on Fridays. That would be our day for closing the whole building.
So we've had a few discussions, and basically we brought it up. Travis and I met with Leslie and Ellen. Obviously, it has to be a decision of all three commissioners to give it a pilot program, give it, like she said, from May till the end of the year to really see how it works. I do know that they are struggling, or I shouldn't say the word struggling, but concerned with employees, with a lot of them that do have children that are off on Fridays now that the school system has went to a 4-day work week. This is kind of a benefit that really doesn't cost us anything.
Right.
The hours are just extended, which I think you close at 4:30 now, correct?
8:30 to
So
4:30
it
are our
really
hours
is an
now.
extension of an hour on the back end.
45 minutes on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
45 minutes on the front end, so it does give people a little bit more time, depending on, if they go to work earlier or later, where they can or cannot get in there. A lot of what they do is online, not necessarily, well, specifically the clerk is online, but I think you can access all of your information online
Yes.
also.
And we
So-
also have a Dropbox available for people to make payments. That's for all the departments, so.
So that is also there. So really, in a nutshell, gentlemen, it's, do we give them the opportunity to try this pilot program? I did, May 1st is coming rapidly.
Yes.
I had kind of thought we should try and train the public, give them at least 60 days, but we're running short on that time now. But still, I think if we got it out there through our venues, even a PSA, whatever we decide to do, whatever you decide to do, that, we could probably make that happen. I know Empire Electric is closed on Friday,
We're open on Friday till noon.
and then Montezuma Water Company's closed. They're There are other agencies that are closed on Fridays, so
But
I guess,
like Empire's just a minimal staff, I mean, just,
yeah.
And I think Kim spoke to title companies, surveyors, funeral homes, you know, people that do regular business in our building also, and they said they were able to work with the hours as long as they knew in advance what they were going to be.
So, do you guys have
I mean,
questions for
it'll
him?
be easy, it might open up, you know, an opportunity for folks to come in early before they go to work and after work too. which
That's
is-
the
I've heard
complaint that we
complaint.
always hear is, I can't
Right.
get here during my working hours, and
Yeah, because if they get off at 4:30, they can't get
Right.
to you at 4:30.
Yeah.
And then the lunch hour line for the clerk's office a lot of times is, you know,
Oh.
almost out the door, so people can't even get it done in an hour
their
waiting
lunch
for
hour. Right.
everybody. So I think it will help the public a lot. And the reason for the May 1st is I would like to have a new schedule set in place before protest period starts so that I'm not changing that in the middle of protest period.
We're not having that this year.
Oh, thank you. I'll let everybody know.
Well, with valuations up 40 to 50%, I bet
Yeah.
we have a few protests
maybe
this year.
so.
Go 4 days a week, well, we don't need any more holidays, do we?
No, we want to keep all the holidays.
Gerald,
Good point. That's a good point, Gerald.
we didn't say we're altering the holiday schedule.
Actually, we had that conversation, and I can just say that we had that conversation. But they're well aware of it, because there are going to be some, basically what they're proposing is Monday through Friday, or I'm sorry, Monday through Thursday, and be closed every Friday. So we altered the Friday after Thanksgiving, which would be a paid holiday anyway, because we gave up President's, whatever it was.
Whatever it was.
Anyway, but
And
that
we are going
doesn't,
to work with the
that
finance
doesn't
department.
necessarily affect them. It would just be the holidays that land on a Monday, and then that week, they would just be short the hour and 45 minutes, which they've checked with their people in their offices, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue at all. So, I mean, I personally don't have an issue trying it, giving it a pilot program. You know, we give it 6, 7 months, see how it works. If it works, we continue, and if we don't, we go
Well, we'd
back.
like to go through the end of the year
Right.
and then report back,
Yeah.
you know, end of the year, beginning of next year, and then maybe
Right.
tweak stuff if we need
Right,
to or
from May
whatever.
till the 31st, which obviously, you know, would like to hear from you sometime in December to see how it's going. So it'll be a short a month before the pilot.
Yeah.
terminates.
Just kind of know how it is, so we can start the year with whatever we're going to start the year with.
So,
Maybe we can get with Justin too to see if there's a cost savings on the janitorial services
Yeah.
over that period of time.
Good idea.
I'm sure there will be some cost savings, because if you're not occupying the building, I'm not sure how significant it's going to be. I
Yeah.
think it's more,
And I don't think there's going to be a savings on our utilities in our building since we
What
have
time do
the
they usually come in to start cleaning though?
nighttime after
Yeah,
we get
right
off.
Yeah, they
after
do
work.
evening
They'll probably
janitorial
have to be,
services.
I mean, and we don't mind that they're in our building cleaning. It's up to them if they want to be there.
But if they're not having to show up on a Friday,
Friday. Mhm.
Right.
They could clean it Thursday and be done
be done.
Friday, not come back till Monday. And we
So-
don't, you know, if it messes with their schedule of coming in at 5 like they're used to or whatever, we don't mind that they're there,
sure.
so. It's not a big
Anyway.
deal.
We can't make a decision today, but we do have it on the
Yeah.
unfinished business tomorrow. But I don't have any other questions. I think we'll probably,
Might let us know how it's going sometime around September, October, see if
Okay.
there's any problems.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's kind of hard to see how it's going to work, but
Right.
I anticipate that it will go pretty well.
so how do you, or what are your thoughts as far as letting the community know? Obviously, you have the scrolling board out front. I mean, do you
Right,
have
we'll
any
let
other?
Vicki know to put it on the county page, obviously, and then we can all put it, we don't have a treasurer page, and she doesn't have an assessor, but Kim does have a clerk page, but I could put it on personal. I think everybody, if they could post it personally, would be good, just a FYI. I don't know that we want to spend money to put it in the newspaper, but that's such a fortune to,
I think we'll just do signs on both, you know, well, the 3 doors we have.
Right.
yeah, and maybe internally in our office.
in our office doors, yeah.
You can actually put it on a piece of wood because it actually sticks better.
We could
to
write
that.
it on the cardboard.
Yeah,
I mean, we could just get a marker and do that.
right.
There you go. And honestly, no matter how much time we give them, it's still gonna be a shock
Right.
to some.
Right,
You know,
but
they try to come in on a Friday, but
the more we can do to get them.
yes.
Yeah.
I actually think it'll go over well for a lot of people.
And Ellen and I were talking this morning, I think we're gonna get lettering to put on the Dropbox so
long as it's
people
after dark.
really know that, you know, you
They
can
can
put
use
your
that.
stuff here. A lot of people don't pay attention to where that's at. We need to not use Kim's Dropbox, but use the other one, so we're
Yeah,
gonna
they
make sure
can't
we're
use
gonna.
hers. Hers is locked
put
because
some
it's a
lettering on
voting
it.
box, but we do have another Dropbox that we bought during COVID for that purpose, which was used a lot during that period, and then people kind of forgot about it, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner, questions?
No,
See how,
Okay,
see how
yes.
many eggs we get thrown at us?
yeah.
Yeah, you guys might hear about it more than, well, I'm sure we're all gonna hear about it from somebody. Somebody won't like it. We'll see how
Oh,
many
I'm-
people do.
Sure that somebody won't
Car
like it,
dealers?
but
I mean,
They mostly mail in all their stuff,
okay.
from what I understand, because I get their mail all the time. But yeah, but I know when they bring in titles, they just bring in a stack at a time. I don't even think it's every day kind of a thing. I think it's like once a week or something. They just bring in a stack of stuff.
Okay.
And if our due date should fall upon a day like that, we'll just adjust it forward so that they have a extra day to come in and pay, because I don't want anybody's due date to be on the day we're not there. But we plan ahead for that when we put them in anyway on the forms, so that shouldn't be too big of a deal.
And have you checked the due dates for this year? Nothing falls?
Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
anything falls there. So I think the 15th of June is on a Thursday, I think.
But I understand, I have 6 grandkids and Fridays off are a little tough for my kids.
It's really gonna help Kim's office.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have a lot of moms in there. It's gonna help them a lot.
yep, and I have 1, you have 2.
2, well, 3,
So-
actually.
Oh, yeah, 3,
Jason.
4,
Mhm.
actually. Yeah, except Zane.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why.
no other questions?
No.
Okay. Don't throw anything.
Okay, we'll tell him not to throw at Gerald.
Well, we get, you know,
think
people
that's
don't
really
like
gonna
what we
do
do
any
now.
good?
They're gonna, I mean, we just gotta,
Yeah, we get yelled at for closing at 4:30 too,
Well, we-
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't close at 4:30. Make sure you stay open till 5:30.
Yeah,
5:31.
well, now we get, you know,
Yeah,
we have
right.
people at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Right.
banging
Yeah,
on the
because
door,
most people
yelling
are
at us.
getting off at 4:30, so there's no way they can
Oh,
make
they
it.
try to rip the door off the hinges.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Like,
can't make it.
Not
and they're
opening.
waiting there to get in when you get there,
Yeah.
so I do think it'll help that. So,
Okay,
And I
Alright.
guess we would just set the schedule with IT of when the doors to unlock and lock. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, so you
You
can,
just have to get with them.
perfect.
yeah, they don't break our door.
I
Again.
still don't know, maybe what we shouldn't still put something in the paper.
For the
Maybe-
people that don't go online.
Write an article
I
for
mean-
the paper and see what
Well,
they
and
do.
the
There's a few
3 of
of
our
us-
offices would pay for it. I mean, I think we'd
Yeah.
all pitch in
I'll
and pay
bet-
for it.
That's true.
I'll bet if you just wrote a press release and sent it over there, they would put it
Okay.
in.
yeah, that would.
Cool.
that
That's
would
what
be
that's
good.
how I would do it. I would.
Okay,
That
Good
makes
idea.
sense.
If you do a public notice, it costs a lot, so
Yeah.
press release.
Just a press release saying, hey, on this day, moving forward, we're
Perfect.
gonna try a pilot program, da-da-da-da,
perfect.
after we approve it.
Yes,
Yes.
we're jumping ahead.
Okay. All right,
If it's approved, we'll put it in the paper.
Thank you
All right.
for your consideration.
Thank you,
for
ladies.
coming.
Thank you.
appreciate it. Have a good day.
Yeah, save those batteries.
Okay, next we have discussion as far as the zoning board of adjustments. We had well, here it is. I'm gonna turn it over to Ian, and this is, I'll let him describe everything that he's got forward for all of us.
Yeah. So basically, it was brought to our attention, or brought to my attention, that we don't have a zoning board of adjustment at this point in time. I think we've always sort of had one on a de facto basis with the commissioners serving, but we've never actually done a resolution, at least that I can find, that sets it out. It is required by our land use code and is also required by state statute. It can be 3 to 5 members. Members can be county commissioners. In most counties, they're not. In fact, just of the counties I was able to look at that posts their zoning boards of adjustment, I couldn't find another county that had the zoning board of adjustment sitting as county commissioners. It looked like there was a discussion in the county minutes back from, I think, 2005 or 2006-ish about commissioners serving on the board of adjustment.
We had this discussion before.
Yep.
I actually thought we'd done something, so it surprises me that there was nothing there.
Well, so it's in the minutes that there was a discussion, and it looked like a public hearing, and it looked like everybody decided that commissioners were not going to serve on the Board of Adjustment. It's not in our land use code. I couldn't find any sort of resolution. Kim looked as well. So at this point, I'm not seeing anything on the record, and certainly there's nothing in our land use code. So if you guys do decide that you want to appoint yourselves, I think you're good to do that. Legally, you can. Now, whether or not you want to, that's really a question for this board. I mean, on one hand, I think it would be consistent with the way that we operate some of our other boards, like the Board of Health, like the Board of Adjustment for Taxes, like the Board for Social Services. So that would be the advantage, but certainly it's not required. And like I said, most counties, what I would say the norm is, just from, and again, I don't have a full study of every county in Colorado, but just from looking at counties around the state and trying to get some ideas, it looked to me like most counties have Board of Adjustments of 5 members, and they don't have commissioners sitting.
So if the planning commission denied an application,
Yep, so these would be,
It's not, the only application they can look at though is the zoning.
it's
part of it.
zoning. Yep,
correct?
Nothing else
No,
to
no,
do
no,
with
Yep.
just the
development.
zoning,
Yep.
Just the
whether
zoning.
it
Yep.
complies or whether it doesn't comply.
Yeah.
So if the planning commission says, we're gonna deny you based on zoning of whatever, that's all they would be looking at?
that's all that they would be looking at, or decisions made by a zoning official. And in this county, the zoning official would be Don. So there's a few little things in the land use code, like when Don makes a designation about, zoning, what sort of zoning is going to be required, heavy industrial, commercial, et cetera, that could be brought up. So that's what you guys would be looking at. I don't see any harm in the commissioner serving. It's really a judgment call as to how you guys want to handle it. I mean, what I would say, I think probably in a lot of counties, a lot of the bigger counties especially, the Board of Adjustment's going to be a lot busier than the Board of Adjustment in Montezuma County is. And so, in some counties it makes sense to have a full Board of Adjustment, sort of like a P&Z commission, to hear these things, because the commissioners just simply don't have time. There's just too much on their plates. I'm not sure that's going to be an issue for you guys, but that is something you have to decide. Along with that, the way that the statute lays it out, one term should expire each year. And so, at least to start, it would be 3-year terms, but you're going to have to stagger it at the onset. The other funky thing is going to be when you think about a 4-year term for a commissioner, it's going to be funky because if somebody's 2 years in and their term expires, well, they're going to re-up for 3 more, and then all of a sudden they decide not to run for re-election. They're still on this board. I mean, conceivably they could get off the board, but then all of a sudden you're running into kind of the inconsistencies with, whereas the commissioners serve on these other boards. So,
What, if you can recall, I mean, what was your discussion
I
back?
slipped since then.
I know, and I was,
You fell down.
And I fell down. What other excuse do you want?
Got hit by an animal.
I guess no. I got it.
there wasn't really anything in the county minutes
I
that,
remember hearing this, but I mean, we discussed this, and then like we said, I actually thought we had done something at that time, and it surprises me.
Here's my concern.
Especially where we
is-
went through the public hearing.
yeah, there was nothing. I mean, I found the reference to it in the minutes. I found the reference to the discussion. I found Commissioner Chappell sort of making the decision on behalf of the board, and I think they even had a vote that said that the commissioners weren't gonna serve. But that was it. There's nothing in the land use code. The land use code was never changed. So, so in terms of that, like, it's in your guys' boat. I mean, if you want to pass this resolution and say the commissioners are going to serve, you can do that. If you want to appoint a zoning board of adjustment, you can do that.
I mean, I can obviously see why the commissioners felt that it was beneficial to appoint a different board, but here's my concern is that just like our child protected board, is that what it's called? I mean, we struggle.
Citizens
keeping-
Review Panel.
Review panel,
Yeah.
we struggle keeping anybody on that board because there's not
They meet so,
so rarely
Yeah.
that people don't even know that's there. We struggle with, the advisory board over for noxious weeds. We struggle with the advisory board for extension. I mean, to form another board,
One thing I would say is I think planning and zoning issues tend to draw more interest than a citizens review panel. So, I mean, if you guys are concerned you can't draw interest, I mean, you could always put advertisements out and see if any of the positions fill and then make a decision. Again, I'm just throwing all your options
well,
out.
I think we should definitely advertise it. I mean, I don't think we're gonna get anybody if we don't advertise it.
I guess what we need to decide though is if we actually want to have somebody else or if we were gonna do it
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yep.
I think it's
First, and if
probably
we
prudent
decide we don't wanna do it
to
ourselves.
have somebody else look at it, kind of like a third party. I mean, I think that makes sense. And that's probably why you guys back then probably decided, hey, let's have an outside board look at it to make sure. But, I mean, I'm definitely not opposed with it and trying to see if we can get a board, but if we can't, then I think we're back to kind of where we're at
So
with the
the
resolution.
biggest reasons I can see to appoint other board members other than commissioners, I see two big things. One is time. I mean, and I think that's the big driving force in the bigger counties. The commissions just don't have time. And the other thing is, I mean, I think that there is at least a look of impropriety. I mean, if you're appointing a different board, then you guys are separate, and then it doesn't look like the commission's sort of overseeing the entire zoning process. So that's the advantage. But, I mean, on the flip side, I mean, you could say that, hey, you guys represent Montezuma County, you guys were elected as Montezuma County officials, and, part of that was the electorate trusted you guys with zoning decisions. And so that's the flip side. I mean, you guys know the land use code, you work with it consistently. Our Board of Commissioners is way more active in land use issues than boards are in bigger counties. And so you guys have a base of knowledge that maybe citizens or individuals that we would appoint wouldn't have. I think that's the flip side.
I guess to me, again, I don't think it would hurt to advertise it and see if we can fill a board.
see if we have any interest.
And if we have interest, then let's try and fill the board, and if we don't, then obviously we'll have to go
And so,
pivot and go the other direction.
and here's another element of it. Legally, not all three commissioners would have to serve. One commissioner could serve, two commissioners could serve, in conglomeration with one city. I mean, it's got to be either a 3-member board or a 5-member board, and commissioners can sit on it. So that's what it's looking like. The other issue that I wanted to bring up today, and I mean, I guess this is, maybe it's a little premature now if you guys really are looking at advertising it, but compensation. The statute says that there has to be per diem compensation for individuals who serve on the Zoning Board of Adjustment. For our P&Z committee, we compensate our P&Z members $100 a meeting. P&Z meetings most likely are going to be way longer than a Board of Adjustment meeting, so I mean, I don't know if you guys want to go $100. I don't know if you guys want to go $50. I mean, that's another element. I think I put in this thing $50, but $100 would be consistent. So that's the other sort of thing you guys have to look at. And then obviously, if you want to add rules, I mean, basically what the statute says is that you have to have basic rules of operation. I tried to keep these rules really loose. You know, I don't want to tie the hands of the Board of Adjustment when stuff comes before them. I mean, I want them to be able to determine, listen to the evidence, kind of like we do in a commissioners meeting, and run it similar to that, so.
If it was appointed as the Board of Commissioners, I don't think we could be compensated in and above what we're already doing.
I think you have to be,
I wouldn't think so.
because you're not commissioners.
Serving as a commissioner, I
Well,
think is what you're saying.
It's like us appointing ourselves to get some more dough, you know?
Yeah, and that's probably why you guys just
Yeah.
backed off of it totally, which is fine. I'm not saying that we could back off of it totally and just appoint 5 people.
Right.
3 or 5 people.
Let's advertise it and see if we have any interest first. Let's go from there.
How many times have we ever had anybody,
The only time that this has been requested in this form, saying, hey, I want to come before the Zoning Board of Adjustment since I've come here, is when the Ironwood situation was just picking up, they initially made a request to come before the Board of Adjustment. And then because the issue was resolved, the issue that they were going to appeal was resolved, it went away. And that was an attorney from Junction who had some experience with the zoning boards of adjustment and made that request. We also had an appeal to the commissioners of the zoning decision for that property down south of town where they were going to put the apartment complexes. I mean, I think technically that probably was fashioned as something that normally probably would have come before the zoning board of adjustment. I don't think that they termed it that way, but that was the other time. And I don't know of any time since I was here in 2016. I mean, again, I wasn't up here every day, but I don't recall any time the Board of Adjustment ever being
And
utilized.
those have been just basically in the last couple of years. what
Now,
you
that
just
being
said.
said, when we pass a resolution appointing the board, I think it's going to probably, at least temporarily, it's going to let people know that that's out there as an option. So there might be an uptick in the number of appeals that are made.
Kind of agree with Commissioner Lindsay that I think, maybe we should advertise it. You guys obviously went through a public hearing and you said that you would step away from it. So maybe we should just advertise it and see what kind of,
so that's what we decided at that time, to just not serve as the board?
What was interesting is it looked like just from the minutes, it was just a paragraph or two in the minutes. And it looked like there was a discussion, and then they solicited public comment at a later meeting. And it was just decided that the commissioners were not going to serve on the zoning board of adjustment. Now, I never was able to find any sort of subsequent resolution or any sort of action by the board to appoint a zoning board of adjustment. It was just a paragraph in the minutes.
I can't. I know, I remember having this whole discussion with Bob about whether we
Yeah.
had to do this or not. It just,
We've got a section in our land use code that specifically calls for it, and it's also called for in state statute.
I just can't remember what, for some reason, it seems to me like he came up with some reason why we didn't actually have to do it. And
Okay.
I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was. It just seems like Bob came up with something that we discussed that reason why we did not have to do that. And I honestly, I don't remember what it was, but it just seems like that's what happened. Because I know we went
Yeah.
through this discussion about, because it's in the land use code and it should have been done and we should have done this stuff. And then it seems like, I don't know.
My only concern, and I mean, I'm not saying that there's not some reason out there. My only concern is if somebody comes in and says, hey, section 9206 or whatever it is of the land use code says, that you've got this Board of Adjustment and it's gonna hear these decisions and I'm appealing to it. And then you've got a state statute on point as well. And I don't know. Kim and I both looked through the minutes for any references to Board of Adjustment. It looked like there was a discussion back in the 60s, even before the land use code, and that probably related to state statute. And it didn't look like any action was taken then. And then the discussion, and I think it was 2006, I could pull those minutes and look at them again, but it was right around that period of time.
Do you have any issues with advertising it and see if we can find a point?
I don't have any issues with it as far as I go. I don't know. I guess I just don't. I'm like you, it would surprise, the thing of it is, it's kind of like, I just think that, you have a board like that, it's probably not gonna meet once a year. How you gonna, there's no regular,
Well, let me
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
It's
is I
difficult,
don't-
that's why I said, just like.
It's hard to
our-
gonna be to get people to participate in something that you may not meet for a couple of years.
well,
Because it's not something they can, the only thing they're gonna hear is if
An
somebody
appeal.
appeals that.
Yeah.
and what's,
I guess that's what concerns me, is I don't want people to think they're gonna actually be serving on a board meeting every month, because that's, the likelihood of that is really slim in this county.
Slim.
so.
I guess that's my concern. I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, I think it's a legitimate concern. Just to give you guys some context, I was looking at other counties who have formed these and some of the rules they, so in Delta, it looked like they just formed their zoning board of adjustment in 2021. They passed a resolution real similar to this. So
And then appointed,
they appointed members of non-commissioners is who they appointed. And if my recollection serves me right, they may have even had like one planning and zoning. I think you can only have 2 or 3. If it's a 5-person board, you can't have any more than 3 planning, or any more than 2 planning and zoning commissioners on there. There's a restriction, so the planning and zoning is not just rubber stamping their decision.
I would think you would want somebody totally off of that.
It seems like you would. The statute allows
I
you
mean,
to.
me, I mean,
Yeah,
if they're gonna listen to an appeal from something that they already turned down,
Outside
Yeah.
set of
you'd want,
eyes.
you'd want somebody from outside to look at it.
You can't have so the statute's set up so you
And
can't have a
even-
majority.
Even here, I can see where it could be a conflict, because are they gonna make the final decision totally?
No. The decision is, all they're gonna do is the appeal for the zoning, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, they would but the zoning board of adjustment would make that final decision.
On the
So,
zoning?
Yep,
on zoning, just on zoning, and then it still has to come before us to make the final decision, just as it normally would.
Well, if the zoning don't fit, though, it's
Then
done.
it's not, yeah. it's
yeah,
not
I mean,
coming
the
back
zoning,
with it.
so the way it would work is if there was a decision that was appealed from the zoning official from P and Z, then it would go up to the Board of Adjustment, then the Board of Adjustment would make that decision, and then if that entity that was appealing wanted to appeal to district court, then that would be the next step. Does that make sense? So it just runs up the chain.
I mean, my trepidation is still that we're gonna appoint a board, and it's gonna be like the,
Child protection.
Child Protection Board that doesn't meet once in a blue moon.
Right.
And then,
Yeah,
and then we don't ever, it's really hard to keep these people even on the board, because they, like you said.
Or remember to appoint them after their term expires.
or-
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't we have that problem?
Yeah.
I mean, with
Absolutely,
every
because,
board we got
because they
almost.
they're not there.
I know, that's because they're not meeting, and that's what I mean. It just seems like it's gonna be one of these boards that
That's why I'm almost saying.
I mean, in a way, and I don't know that this is the right way to do it. I mean, but, you know, in a way, you could wait for an appeal to it and then appoint it at that point. But that's probably not the best way to do it. You should probably have it in place. I mean, conceivably, that would maybe alleviate the issue, but it's probably not the best way to do it.
I don't even know how the city's adjustment board works. I don't know.
It's probably a statute
Yeah.
relatively close.
I don't know. I don't know how, I don't know when they meet, if they meet or.
Well, that's
Let
the
me find
thing.
out. Let me snoop around.
I don't,
I thought Gerald had gonna give us some insight that.
I was amazed how.
way too many years from 2006
Yeah.
till now to get some insight. If I can remember, it just really seems to me like Bob came up with some reason why we didn't have to do that.
Well, we
And
don't
now-
have to do it,
What it was, I honestly don't remember, but
but by the statute, we do have to do it.
It's
But it
set
just
forth
doesn't
in
have to be us
statute and it's
appointing.
in the land use code. So I'm not saying Bob didn't come up with a real creative way. Maybe he was just more creative than I am. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't.
oh, I know. I know we had this discussion about it before, that it was in the land use code and
Yeah.
it was in state statute
Yep.
too, that
Yep.
we were supposed to do this, and I can't believe nothing happened, you know, with that. It just seemed like we did do something, and I don't,
It's too bad it's not reflected in the minutes.
yeah.
That would be,
We'll sleep on it, and we will decide tomorrow. We have
Oh,
two
yeah.
choices in front of us. We can either accept the resolution that Ian has brought forth, which appoints ourselves, or two, we can advertise it and try to appoint
So
the
if-
board.
and if you guys decide to accept the resolution, just so I'm clear, I mean, I think there's a couple issues. The per diem reimbursement, that's one thing you guys have to decide. And then you gotta decide who's gonna serve for
Sure.
what terms. So, I mean, I've got it written up here with Commissioner Copenhaver serving, it's up a little bit. A three, two and one, and I just based that kind of on the way you guys are in your terms right now, and tried to make it as close, but, I mean, obviously that can be flopped if you
I
want.
wonder why he put me at the top of the list.
It's that Mancos privilege.
Yeah,
It's a-
Yeah.
I knew I was gonna get in trouble, whoever
Laugh about something, so.
I knew however I structured it.
I guess I personally, just discussion wise, I don't have any problem if we do this. Cause it almost seems like that's what we decided before, that we were just gonna serve as the,
Well, it would definitely be
but
consistent.
it looks like we would have done a resolution.
The
and
minutes
stuff
looked like they were just the opposite.
Yeah, see, and that
So I-
surprises me, cause that's what I thought we did do.
Yeah.
That's what surprised me when you said we decided to just go the other way, so. Cause I remember discussing that back then, and we decided there's so few appeals, why would we do that? Why
Yeah.
would we have another board? That's it, I can remember having that discussion, but it surprises me that there wasn't something there that we
Well-
actually did that.
There could be more appeals nowadays
'Cause I-
than ever, but.
That's what I thought Bob came up with, is just to appoint ourselves, because there was so few appeals to that sort of thing that, I don't know, it's been too long, I guess.
All right, well, those are our two choices for tomorrow. Sleep on it and we can decide tomorrow. Maybe it'll come to you tonight.
That's been 17 years ago. I doubt it's gonna come back that fast. Can you remember where you were 17 years ago?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I hope I never have to go to court, and say, where were you on a certain date? I couldn't remember. I know where I was yesterday, but, you know, things.
Don't ask me the day after.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, anything else, Ian?
That's it.
All right, well, you've given us everything that we can. Now we'll sleep on it and we'll come back tomorrow with a decision. Okay, with that, gentlemen, we are at the end of our agenda and we are adjourned. Thank you all.